Are you struggling to get more views to YouTube videos? Do you want to reach more people so your channel can grow? On this live stream, if you're watching the replay, I'm going to be talking about how to get more impressions on YouTube videos so you can reach a larger audience, get more views, get more subscribers, and grow your channel fast, because it all starts off with impressions. So we're going to be diving more deeply into how to get more impressions, what impressions mean, how they're counted, how they change over time, how it relates to impressions click-through rate, and also going to look at how to check your YouTube impressions in YouTube Analytics, followed up by some frequently asked questions. What's currently your biggest struggle on YouTube? Is it, most people will say, more subscribers, more views, but if you can be more specific, put that in the chat, or if you're watching a replay, put that in the comments. So I'm going to go over to some of my slides, and going to be talking about how we can reach more people by getting more impressions. So what are some of the benefits of getting more impressions? Well, if you get more impressions, I'll be talking a little bit about the defining it, but impressions basically mean how your thumbnail is appearing on YouTube throughout the net. But you get more views, you get more subscribers. If you improve impressions, you'll have also a bigger probability of appearing in YouTube search, get suggested traffic, grow your audience, and also grow your channel. So what does a YouTube impressions mean? It basically means how many times your video thumbnail was shown to people on YouTube. So I'll be emphasizing this throughout the live stream about thumbnails, because that's one of the key factors of improving your impressions. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that, as well as some other factors that lead to more impressions. But think of each impression as the potential reach on YouTube. So the more impressions you get, the more times that your video thumbnail appears in YouTube search and suggested videos, your playlists, etc., then you're getting a bigger reach. So that potential reach means that if people click on that, you get a view, and if the person clicks on your thumbnail, and not all impressions will turn into views. So that means all the impressions that you get don't necessarily result in views, and I'll show you what that entails later. Oh, here it is here. So what counts as an impression? Your thumbnail has to be shown for more than 1 second, and at least 50% has to be visible to the viewers. So make sure you construct a great thumbnail, and it has to appear for at least 1 second. I think with those preview of the thumbnails, that you get on YouTube, you get a few seconds to make that impression. So YouTube usually shows like a thumbnail, sort of like a preview of some very short clips. I probably should have put an image of that. Shows some quick clips of your video when people hover over the thumbnail on YouTube. So the impressions number doesn't include instances where the content's found on external websites. Like if you embed your YouTube video on your blog or your website, and then somebody watches it there, that's not really counted as an impression. It has to be on YouTube. And same applies for social media. If you get clicks on social media, then also that doesn't count as an impression. And then also on your end screens, which I'm kind of surprised, but somebody clicks on the video on your end screen, that's an impression, or YouTube notifications. So then the question is, where are impressions really counted? And this is taken straight from YouTube help file. The impressions appear on search results, the YouTube homepage, the YouTube free feeds. That's on the subscriptions feed, trending feed, history, and watch later. Watch later is what the suggested videos that appear down the right side of the watch page. And then also up next. So that these are the recommendations on the right side of the video player, and also on your home screen. You'll see the big thumbnails on your home screen. So if you click on that, that's what I say, the home page. If you click on that, that counts as an impression. So you definitely want to try to get your videos on the home screen, get them suggested, and get them to appear in YouTube search. And then also impressions can come from playlists. So therefore, if you create playlists and they rank in YouTube search and people find your videos via playlists, then you can increase your impressions that way. And then the more videos that they watch in your playlist, then the more impressions you get. But what is it when impressions are not counted? And it's good to keep this in mind, because as we'll discuss later, sometimes you can have more views than impressions. So why is that? Because you might get a lot of views from external websites, like I get a lot of traffic from Google search. So these the views I get from YouTube search, this is not counted as impressions. That's what YouTube says. The impression is not counted from external websites. So this refers to embeds outside of YouTube. So it could be on your blog, could be on your website, could be on somebody else's website. So maybe if somebody found your video and you did a guest post and embedded your video in their blog, and you got a ton of traffic from that blog or from that guest post, then that's not counted as impressions, but would be counted as views. So you get a lot of views. YouTube mobile website. So that also impressions don't count. Videos on YouTube TV, YouTube Kids, music, gaming apps, content within the video player, cards and end screens, videos in your email. So if you send a notification to your subscribers and they click on your video, then that's not counted as impression. Also push notifications, videos that play in the background, and videos whose thumbnails are not visible for less than 1 second, and also the TrueView video discovery ads. Video discovery ads are the ads that when you do a video ad, it'll appear at the top of the search results, and if somebody clicks on that, that's not counted as an impression, which is kind of surprising, but it's an ad, so that's not counted. How do impressions change over time? So usually when you first upload a video, then your video goes through some kind of cycle. So initially, as you see in this graph, they got like 26 million impressions in a couple of days. Then after that, the impressions dropped, the graph dropped. And later on, it picked up again based upon several factors. So why is that? You get a spike in impressions are very common after you upload or publish a video. So this mostly because of your subscribers. They get a notification from in their email, or they get a push notification, or they see it on their home screen. They see it in suggested videos. So many different ways that your video is discovered. And so immediately your subscribers, which are looking out for, know you a little bit or know you a lot, are hungry for that content, and therefore you'll see that initial spike as your video is first published, and also returning viewers, viewers that like your content. Maybe they didn't subscribe, but we know that the YouTube algorithm, it will serve that content again if the viewer liked that content. So maybe they watched all the way through, they watched some of the other videos. So then the YouTube algorithm knows that, the YouTube algorithm is really smart. So it knows that this particular viewer, based upon their history, knows that they need to feed this content to them. So therefore you'll see that spike at the beginning when you first upload, but then the impressions decline after the initial spike, because your subscribers have watched the video, returning viewers have watched the video, and now your video goes out to wider audiences such as search and suggested. So you'll see a decline in impressions. And then after maybe a few days or a week, you might see again another bump in impressions. This is because there's renewed interest from viewers. It could be, say it's like the 4th of July weekend. So you did a video on the 4th of July, all about fireworks or whatever, Independence Day. And so maybe I released a video today, and then there's a spike because of initial publication. But then tomorrow I might see another spike because it's 4th of July, and I talked about 4th of July, Independence Day today, the 3rd of July. So it could be due to the holidays. If your new content was close related, so say I did a video on, say I did something on click-through rate the day before, impressions, click-through rate, and today I talk about impressions. So then I might see another spike because it's closely related to the video that I just uploaded. So you might see a bump in that. It could also be because your video was picked up by a popular website that drives additional watch time. So as I mentioned before, you could your video might be picked up on a guest blog post. You would have embedded your website. Suddenly you get a lot of traffic because of their hungry audience. So yeah, impressions mean that your video is showing, basically your thumbnail is shown, not your video, because people still have to click on the thumbnail to see your video. So it's not really showing your video yet. Impressions really just refers to that initial thumbnail showing on YouTube search, suggested playlists, home screen, etc. So how do you check for YouTube impressions? So what you can do to check for impressions, what I did here is went into YouTube Studio. You click on Analytics, this is for the channel, and then click on the Reach tab. So impressions means how many times your video thumbnails, not the videos itself, but the video thumbnails were shown to the viewers. So they haven't watched your video yet, they just see your thumbnail, and so the impression is how many times your video thumbnails were shown to viewers. So it includes only the impressions on YouTube, but not on apps and external sites. So in this case, I've got in the last, I put it on the last 90 days, my impressions have increased by 71%. And impressions click-through rate means views per impressions shown. So measures how often viewers watched a video after seeing an impression. So the impression is where people see the thumbnails. The impressions click-through rate is where somebody saw the thumbnail and then they begin watching the video based upon seeing that thumbnail. So in this case, in the last 90 days, the impressions click-through rate that I got was 7%. So went increased by 7%. And then the number of views I got went up also in the last 90 days, went to 1.3 million views, which was 65% increase. So that's pretty good. I've noticed actually that due to coronavirus over the last few months, I've got much more traffic than normal. But recently, and probably because of the summer and more people going, getting outside and people getting fed up being inside. And so not as many people probably online. So I've seen a decrease over the last week or so in my traffic on my channel. So that's actually just normal, is a normal fluctuation that goes on, especially during the year, especially summer, less people on the computer. And then as you go towards the end of the year, it suddenly picks up, more advertising, more people inside, especially as you go into the winter. So there's usually an uptick in traffic. So this is kind of a seasonal fluctuation, which you might see a decrease in views, decrease in subscribers, etc. So Tanisha is saying my subscribers aren't growing. So bear with me here, Tanisha, as I show how to increase impressions. So just going through how to check for impressions. So just to emphasize, what is click-through rate? Because you have impressions, and then click-through rate shows you what percentage of your impressions turned into views. So they're showing, YouTube is showing your thumbnail when it's first uploaded. And so the click-through rate is the measure how often viewers watch your video after seeing your thumbnail. So they see the thumbnail, click on your thumbnail, start watching your videos. So the click-through rate is often very much higher right after you upload your video, when you first publish a video, because your most passionate fans and subscribers see the video on youtube.com. They see it on maybe they even see it on the YouTube app. So then they will watch your video. So it's normal to see that high CTR rate at the beginning. So like if you want to measure the click-through rate of your videos, it's good to kind of wait a few days, because it'll be high at the beginning and then it decreases afterwards as your video gets displayed or shown to a wider audience. And to just keep in mind that half of all channels and videos on YouTube have a click-through rate between 2 and 10%. So if you can get higher than 10%, that's really good. I've seen people get click-through rate like 18, 20%. So that's really good. And ideally, I might be touching on this later, but ideally you want to have a high click-through rate and a high average view duration or high audience retention. So if you can get, that's like the epitome of a great video. You get a high click-through rate, high average view duration, and then high watch time. People watch more of your videos. So if you can do that, then there's a much greater chance that your video will be appearing in search and appearing in suggested videos. Another thing to keep in mind is that new channels and videos with fewer than 100 views can see an even wider range because, you know, they're new channels. They don't have much data that YouTube has to go on. So not much previous traffic that and statistics that YouTube has to go on to serve that same audience. But as you upload more videos, then you know you're gaining authority on your channel, and then the YouTube algorithm has more data to work with. And so if viewers are watching your videos and they love your content and you serve similar content on an ongoing basis, then the YouTube algorithm will want to bring them back to your channel, bring them back to your future videos. So think of each impression as a potential reach on YouTube. So the more impressions you get, the more reach you have, and you have a chance to get that view, chance for someone to click on that thumbnail that they see on the home screen, they see in YouTube search, they see in suggested videos, etc. So it's all up to the audience. It's not, you know, the algorithm follows the audience. So if you home in or tap into the mind of your audience, that's the key. And if you serve the content that they love, then the YouTube algorithm will serve more of those videos. So just to keep in mind also that not all impressions will turn into views, because impressions are mostly coming from YouTube, but if it's on an app or from a website or social media site, then that's not counted as an impression. So the YouTube algorithm is really based upon impressions click-through rate, audience retention, average view duration. So that's actually the main ranking factors that you got to watch out for to get your videos promoted by YouTube. So here's an example of click-through rate. So on the top videos, a high click-through rate resulted in more impressions and views. So this particular video, 159 impressions, and then had impressions, or currently has, because it's an old video, currently has an impressions click-through rate of 11.1%. And as a result, it's over the last 28 days, it got 25.6 thousand views on that video. So that kind of says, you know, that's like an old thumbnail. And it kind of surprised me because, you know, I was not really sure what kind of thumbnails to create, but these just created these kind of colorful thumbnail, so it stands out. But it could also be with a topic. So it's a good idea to look at your click-through rate of your videos, and if there's a high click-through rate after, you know, of some of your old videos, then study the thumbnail, study the topic, study the what caused this video to get a lot of traffic. And if you can nail that, then you can create more videos like that and capitalize on that traffic. And then the low click-through rate on this other video, because it's a different topic, but low click-through rate is in the last 28 days, got 1.6 thousand impressions, but that video didn't get promoted by YouTube as much, and so the impressions click-through rate was only 0.7%. That's terrible. And as a result, got much less views. Of course, it's a newer video, so less views. But over the last 28 days, unique viewers are only 34. Whereas the old video at the top, which has a high impressions click-through rate, unique viewers 19.7 thousand over the last 28 days. So that's just something to look at when you go to your YouTube analytics. How do impressions lead to views and watch time? So if you get a lot of impressions, you get a lot of views and you get a lot of watch time. So what you do, you go into YouTube Analytics. If you want to drill down, then you go into YouTube Studio, YouTube Analytics, click on the Reach tab, and then you'll see this funnel. So you can see the impressions in the last 90 days, 6.8 million, views from impressions, 472,000, and then watch time from impressions is 11.8 thousand hours of watch time. So you can see how the impressions leads to views and watch time. So the higher the number of impressions you get on a video or on your channel, then the more views and the more watch time, and this will be reflected in your traffic sources. So if we drill down a little further, just to extrapolate the over here, you got 7% click-through rate, and if you click on that, then you get YouTube recommending your content, 9.2%, recommend on the watch page, 7.5%, home page, 1.7%, viewers seeking your content, 90.8%. And here it says you can increase the chance of YouTube suggesting your content by increasing the click-through rate and your video watch time. So those are two big ranking factors: increasing your impressions click-through rate, or click-through rate on on your thumbnails, and then also your watch time. And then here's an overview of traffic source. If you got any traffic sources to find out your top your top videos, then you can just go into YouTube Studio, click on the overview tab, and then you go to your top videos in that particular period. And then you can continue to drill down. You can see your external traffic source, your traffic from your playlists, traffic from suggested videos, and then it'll give you the exact videos that are getting traffic from suggested, and exact videos that are showing up in search. They're getting the most traffic in YouTube search. So that's the way to kind of drill down into your detailed traffic sources. And then another thing is that to improve impressions on your channel is to upload at the times when your viewers are active on YouTube or active on the net. So if you go into YouTube Studio Analytics, click on Analytics, go to Audience tab, then it'll show when your viewers are most active on YouTube. And so this dark purple color shows, that, and on those days, Sunday to Saturday, when you should really upload your videos. So and this might be for people in the United States or West Coast, East Coast, so you can kind of drill down if you wanted to in your analytics and see which countries they're coming from, which states they're coming from, which coast they're coming from, etc. So the big question is, how can you get more impressions? Which means that you're showing your video to more people, or actually a correction, showing your thumbnail to more people. So probably one of the biggest things is to redesign your thumbnails. If you look at your impressions click-through rate, then you want to improve that. So how can your thumbnails stand out from your competitors? You can also split test your thumbnails using the legend option and TubeBuddy. So when it comes to thumbnails, it doesn't necessarily mean that you got to stick with your branding. You got to stick stick with the same design all the time, but you might want to change it completely and try without your face, or you might try a different color. You might try without text or with text, or one word or two words, or, trying all different things. And then look at your competitors' videos, or competitors' thumbnails, and see how can you differentiate yourself, and then just experiment with trying to create better thumbnails. And along with that is creating better titles, because the people are going to see your thumbnail, they're also going to read your titles. So you got to choose a great topic that resonates with your audience. So if your audience is mostly interested in how to train puppies, and then you do a video on you having a barbecue, then you're going to probably turn them off. So you want to kind of stick with what your audience is really, what topics your audience, what topics resonate with your audience, and you can see that in your YouTube analytics and in your keyword research. Another thing is you got to double down on high performing videos. So if you look on YouTube analytics, or we look at your top 10 videos, then you'll see, if you have some history of your channel, you'll see some of the top performing videos, and then you can make similar content, approach the topic from a different angle, maybe make a shorter video, maybe make a longer video, maybe make a series of videos on that topic, put it in a playlist, promote the playlist, promote the videos in that playlist, but link them all together so that you can get into suggested videos. You can also add the videos to playlists. So when you're playing the video, at the end of the video, then say at the end of the video, well, if you enjoyed this content, for example, if you enjoyed this content, I've got a ton more content that goes deeper into this topic. So definitely watch the next video. So next week I'm going to talk about, I'll be showing a video what to say at the end of your videos. So different things you could say, things you should not say that turns people off. But main thing is that you want to get people to watch another video, so you can drop a link at the top of your description, because the first 3 lines of your description is what people see as they're watching your video. You can also pin a link to the top of your comments. So when people go to comment on your video, they'll see that link to the next video, or that link to the playlist. So that's another thing you can do. You can also upload when viewers are on YouTube, as I mentioned before. Look at that audience graph and see where are your viewers located? Are they located most United States? Are they most located on the West Coast, the East Coast? And what time are they on YouTube? So if you look at that graph that YouTube gives you in the audience tab, then you'll know the best time to publish. So the best day, the best time, and then if you drill down into your demographics, you'll be able to see where people are subscribing from. Then in your video, you also want to invite viewers to subscribe and turn on the bell notification. So you can do that at the beginning of the video, particularly if people are watching like only 1 minute of or 5-minute video, then you probably want to put that subscribe call to action at the beginning. If they're watching to the end, then you can put it at the end. You can also just have a subscribe watermark, just put a little graphic that pops up from the bottom reminding people to subscribe to your channel. And you can also put that subscribe button in your end screen. Computer Life Hacks is saying, how about if YouTube doesn't tell me when my audience is on YouTube? Well, then you can just go into your YouTube, go into YouTube Analytics, and then just look at where where people are coming from. So say, for instance, most of your traffic is coming from the West Coast, then you know that if people are getting up to get their coffee and their breakfast at say 8 o'clock on the West Coast, then if you're on the East Coast, then the East Coast is like 3 hours behind the West Coast, or the West Coast is like 3 hours ahead of the East Coast. So you want to maybe release your video like at 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning, so by the time that your viewers get up, they can see watch your video over breakfast. So you don't need to necessarily, if you don't have that graph, then just go look at where your viewers are coming from. If they're coming from the West Coast, East Coast, they're coming from Saudi Arabia, India, then you can adjust, your time. I don't think it's going to be such a huge difference, but you can also experiment in the morning. You can, release at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Release your video at, like myself, recently I've been releasing a video on Sunday morning, just to see, is there any difference between releasing it on Sunday versus Monday? So, maybe more people are around on the weekend. So that's one way to do it. So those are some of the things that you can try to improve impressions. So how can you get more impressions? Show your video thumbnail to more people by upgrading your thumbnails, creating great titles, looking at those top 10 performing videos, make more content surrounding that particular content. Put your videos into playlists where the videos are all related to each other, and then upload when your viewers are on YouTube, and then also tell viewers in the video to subscribe, tell them why they should subscribe, and tell them to click on the bell notification icon. Better thumbnails lead to more impressions. So if you go into channel analytics, here's a graph showing the last 365 days, and clicking on the reach tab, so I got 17.4 million impressions resulted in, and then I had in the last 365 days, the impressions click-through rate was 6.8%. And as a result, I got 3.3 million views. But then in the last 90 days, probably our last 3 months or more, I changed my thumbnails, and so now I'm getting impressions click-through rate, more people clicking on my thumbnails, which has resulted in an impressions click-through rate throughout my channel of 7%, which is an increase of 2% over the 6.8% over the last year. So if you can improve your impressions click-through rate by 1% or even 2%, then this will result in more impressions, in more views, and more watch time, and overall growth of your channel. So in the last 90 days, you got 6.8 million impressions, and then impressions click-through rate was 7%, and as a result, 1.3 million views. So I increased my impressions click-through rate by redesigning or upgrading my thumbnails. So that's something you can do. And Thumbnail Blaster is, if you don't know how to create thumbnails, then Thumbnail Blaster is a great software. It's a one-time fee, I think. And in 3 clicks, you can pick a template, modify the template according to your liking, and then upload the video thumbnail. It also has the ability to split test your thumbnails. So that's another great thing. So if you want to check that out, then I put a review of Thumbnail Blaster in the description, but if you want to check out the software itself, you just go to drostvideo.com/thumbnail blaster. Another thing you can do is split test your thumbnails using TubeBuddy. This is the Legend option, so they have split testing built into the software. So if you've got TubeBuddy and you want to upgrade to Legend, you can get the A/B split testing feature. If you want to get 20% off TubeBuddy, you can use Herman's Buddy at checkout. You get 20% off. So, but here is a I think I showed a few weeks ago these two different thumbnails, and I couldn't decide. The original was the very brightly colored one with the target, the dartboard, and the second thumbnail I came up with was circle around the man there, around the person, and the title of the video is how to target your right audience. So so most people, when I ran it by my Facebook group, most people said that option number one was best because it was brighter colors and it stood out more, etc. So then I did a split test using TubeBuddy, and after like 3 weeks, I think it's about 3 weeks, let's see, June 19th, yeah, about 3 weeks, TubeBuddy says that the variation thumbnail got more clicks than my original thumbnail. So what you think may work as far as a thumbnail goes, even if you get several opinions, then it may not actually work out that way. You might have put 1 hour into a thumbnail and you think, oh, that's a terrible thumbnail, and you put 20 hours into your second thumbnail, you think, wow, that's such a beautiful thumbnail, it's going to get a lot of clicks, and then you split test it, and you sometimes find the thumbnail you spent 1 hour on does better than the one you spent 20 hours on. So you really don't know until you look at the data, and that'll show you the proof as to what really made a difference. So definitely split test your thumbnails to increase your impressions click-through rate. So what are some frequently asked questions that people have about impressions? What drives impressions? So when you first upload a video, as I said before, YouTube will surface that video to all the relevant audiences, to your subscribers, to your viewers, on the home screen, on the YouTube app, on the suggested videos on the right hand side of the watch page. And then YouTube systems try to figure out if the viewers are really interested in that video and likely to watch it. And if you get that view velocity, a lot of people start watching it, then YouTube will surface that video to more people on YouTube. So your initial impressions are going to be high, then it's going to drop off, and then you might get bumps along the road as YouTube sends it out to different audiences and they love the content, watch your video, and you might see bumps occurring there. So the YouTube system will continue to surface the video to the audiences as long as it remains on YouTube. So if you get suddenly it gets a high ranking on YouTube search, then people will start discovering your video based upon an answer to their question based upon YouTube search. So Random saying, I think the variation is a bit boring. Yeah, I thought it was a bit boring too. The original thumbnail looked much more exciting to me. But hey, I'm going to go with the data, and so I chose that one. Another idea is to just keep on creating new thumbnails if you have time, and try to do better than the one that YouTube picked. why do I have fewer impressions than subscribers? So you got to keep in mind that there's notifications and traffic from external websites and screens are not included in the impressions data. So you could have your video embedded on your website, on your blog, on somebody else's very high traffic blog or website. Social media might have put your video out on Instagram or out on Twitter or on Facebook, and suddenly you got a flood of people that subscribe to your channel. So then you might have got more subscribers than impressions. And then another thing to keep in mind is that not all views come from thumbnail impressions. So as I mentioned, the views could come from people click on your end screens on different apps, on websites, blogs, social media sites, etc. An impression is not counted in every instance where a viewer sees the video thumbnail. So they got to spend at least 1 second on it. It's got to be at least, and then at least half the video is got to be shown. So not all impressions are going to be counted as the thumbnail. What do I have more views than impressions? This kind of follows the same line because a large amount of traffic will come from outside YouTube. So social media sites, on your website, on your blog, as I said before. So not every time a viewer sees the video thumbnail will count as an impression, because they might have seen that thumbnail on your blog. They might have seen that thumbnail somewhere outside of YouTube. So you're not going those views, like I get most of my views from Google search, and that doesn't count as impressions. So most of my external traffic comes from Google search, and I get tons of views from Google search, but this doesn't count as impressions. So therefore, just keep in mind that it's good to increase impressions, but you also want, and you can do that through some of the things I mentioned, through improving your thumbnails, improving your playlists, and improving your your view rate, your click-through rate, etc. So, but the views are going to come from other places as well. So that's why you'll get more views than you do impressions. Why are my impressions and click-through rate low? So not every time a viewer sees the video thumbnail will count as the impression, and not all views will come from the thumbnail impression. So you could share your video elsewhere without the thumbnail, so people click on your video, but they're not clicking on the thumbnail. Older videos may have more impressions since they'll continue to be surfaced to audiences as long as they're on YouTube. So I have some old videos that are like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old that are doing well in YouTube search. So they're ranked on the first page of YouTube. So these are old videos that have, the click-through rate may not be very high, but the impressions and click-through rate may not be very high, but they're getting a lot of view. They rank well on YouTube, and so they're getting a lot of views. So as your videos become more popular, they'll be shown to a wider audience. So when you first upload the video, as I said before, then it's going to your core viewers, but then as it gets shown to more people around the net, then the click-through rate's going to go down. So you might see an increase in views because it's getting distributed out to a larger and larger audience, but your click-through rate's going down. That's why if you want to observe your click-through rate, it's good to wait 2, 3 days, 7 days before you think, oh, maybe I should maybe I should change my thumbnail. So that's probably best to wait a week or so before you change your thumbnail. Some people, like I think I had a guest, what was Daniel Patel the other week, saying that he changes his thumbnail within the first few hours. So because YouTube's saying that you might get a lot of views, but your click-through rate might, you might get a higher click-through rate in the initial upload phase. Therefore, it's hard to kind of really see that it's due to your thumbnail. So I would say, I would recommend, wait a few days before you change your thumbnail instead of doing it right away. How to make custom thumbnails on YouTube. What are some of the ways you can do that? I'm not going to go into that, but definitely check out this. I think it was a live stream. I've got click the link in the description below. I'll also put this an end screen here that will show you where you can go to watch that video, which goes all into how to explode your views by creating eye-catching clickable thumbnails.